Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is round 4 of the 2025 Columbus OP Cup. Thanks again, of course, to Doug Sims for putting on this wonderful event. And of course, rest in peace, Phil Miller. Thank you again for putting on this wonderful event for us as well. And of course, this acting as a memorial tournament for Phil Miller, passed away recently in the community. And of course, for round 4, I do have Tyler with me, but we are going to actually dive right into this game as it has already started. We have Joe Peters at the bottom with Mephisto, Doppelganger, Dr. Octopus, and Old Spider-Woman, or 3-stat Spider-Woman, as you might say, Event Horizon, and Mojo World. On the top, we have Laurence with Barsoom, Age of Apocalypse, Silver Sable, Van Helsing, Beast the Brute, and Heroes for Hire, working off that JW aspect. Now, event has been played by Joe Peters. It is, of course, in memorial fashion, the Ed event, which is no intellect icons may be used to attack for remainder of battle. Now, of course, rule changes coming that you do not have to discard those cards. If it is just a straight attack, you are allowed to hold them for bluffing purposes. And it did look like there may have been a few discards right away on Joe's side. But of course,
he had 3.
Glad to have you here, Tyler.
Yeah, so we're going to get right into this one because we don't have a lot of intro footage on this, so we're moving in. But it looks like Joe Peters had 3 dupes right away, which is really rough. The other thing to keep in mind with these events is you no longer are stopped from playing activators. So yeah, it looks like Joe duped a bunch of his Mephisto 3s, which that deck has quite a few. And he's playing his standard taunt draw combo, which we'll get into if you're not understanding what that's all about.
Now, of course, with 5 cards on his side, you do look across Laurence already placing a card with an intelligence icon on it, not being usable across the table. Joe did point that out earlier on. So, of course, Joe just seeing a 6 and a 2 right now across the board.
The 2 is also a good card to see as well because it doesn't defend your 3. It's very low for venture. And as long as your cards in hand are higher than a 2, it basically doesn't count. Now you just can't let it KO a character and you're fine.
And of course, duplicating those 2 3s, as Ty mentioned earlier, you should know that he has another 3 in his hand.
Yes.
And of course, that, if successful, may draw 2 cards off the top of the draw pile for Mephisto. And Joe very much pointing out that intelligence icon, explaining you may not play that teamwork. Of course, always good to point it out, for both strategic as well as bluffing purposes.
Yeah, and what's interesting about...
Oh, wow.
Joe just ventured 7?
I think we both did not expect this.
Down that many cards?
Joe Peter down 3 cards, ventures 7, thus giving his opponent 5.
Wow, this is shocking.
And there's the 5, counting it out for his opponent.
So this the second venture of 7 in the same tournament. Wow.
And in the first hand, both games. This is usually a lot of times venture 7 decks will find an opportunity within the game to venture 7.
Or they're doing that every match. This has just been kind of more standard decks that have been just found opportunities to venture 7 just randomly. Now, I know Joe's played aggressively with that deck, but that's insane.
And as we saw within round 1 of Venture 7, that the Venture 7 person did pull out. Oftentimes, when someone ventures 7, percentages are they actually often win it, as opposed to lose the Venture 7. There's very few times.
I agree with that. I think that's because in order to do that, you don't want to risk the humiliation of losing a lot of the time. And so people are extra careful and extra sure that they have enough of an edge to pull it off. Now, Joe, I'm not saying Joe Peters isn't an extra careful player, but Joe also is he likes having fun. He likes taking risks, and he's a very risk averse player. So because of that, he's very tolerant to risk. So he'll go crazy if he sees a good time to do it. And for some reason, he thinks this is the hand.
Now, of course, I am assuming if you have 1 or 2 negates, you could easily sway this top 7 from happening. Now, Laurence trying to figure out every angle that Joe is attempting here. Now, it probably is going to angle into with great power into additional 3s and probably just try to stall out right now. And hopefully he's going to get a with great power with his with great power and just continuously stall the round until he can push his advantage with those Mephisto 3s.
The thing I love about the deck is the switch to Mojo World and Doc Ock means he's got a Doc Ock card that can't be negated, that shuts down negates, and a Psylocke activator that also does that, which means Laurence won't be able to stop the with great power, at least for a few turns. He needs probably multiple negates in this hand to be able to stop either.
Great strategic forethought there as you saw that, Tyler. Of course, Mojo World not being one of the more popular battle sites, but of course getting a lot of recent play as battle sites, and the new ERB influction has really sort of changed the game quite a bit.
Now, is that even playable with that event?
That is
that they just moved it into the middle?
Definitely not a playable card. Now, of course, playing
I love
playing a 3 intelligence ally right through the no intelligence icon may be played.
Moved it right into position, right in front of the attack.
And of course, Joe repositioning the event right beside it within inches. Now, of course, again, as we mentioned, in these situations, obviously, it would be an interesting call. You would call the judge over and they would then rule as to what would happen from this point on in the game.
I would not want to rule this one.
Now, rulings can always change depending on who the judge is. But in this situation, I firmly believe the play would probably stay in play and you would just continue play from this point on.
I think the 3 would be discarded. I don't think the 3 would be a valid hit. If I were a judge in this spot, I would not allow the 3 to be playable if they caught it later in the hand. I just think it's very clearly like just erase the attack. The attack shouldn't have happened. There's no context where it could.
Of course, if there are any official judges out there, please leave in the comments of this game how you would have actually ruled that particular situation. Here you go, seeing that Psylocke card coming right out of the battle site, exactly what Ty was predicting, thus, eliminating another negate from Laurence's hand. Laurence taking a big swig of coffee, hoping for some inspiration to feather through his brain at this moment in time.
Yeah, what's scary about Joe's deck is that all he needs is 2 cards left in his hand at any given time, and that's actually enough cards to repopulate his whole hand and to play through potentially 15 cards of his deck if he draws correctly. He can rebuild a hand from nothing with that deck. It's very amazing. And now he just played the teamwork that's not playable. Interesting.
Which Joe pointed out twice before this round even started that teamwork was not playable.
And that's 9 points of venture. And he defended it. Okay. Interesting.
And again, we do always say leave those events exactly where they do have them on the board so that you can see them throughout the whole round and understand the play.
Yeah, there's nothing we're missing here. There's no obfuscate. There's no... That's curious. Okay.
Again, keep attrition. Understand if you put things in your deck, know why you've put them in there. Yeah. Understand what they stop.
And that's another one.
A third card now being played with an intelligence icon.
So that's how many points of venture there that should not even... It's almost 13 points of venture that Joe has used in cards.
14 total points of venture. The teamwork, the 5, and then the 3.
And he's responded to all of it too, where he hasn't needed to. So I'm curious to see if he manages to pull this out regardless. That's the case. That would be incredible.
Which he should still actually be able to. Now, I think the biggest issue Joe's going to run into is that white tiger. Now, that white tiger will allow Laurence to make him discard cards. Now, should that go through Doppelganger, it would have to discard the with great power should he have put an additional one into his hand.
And that's what would be really frustrating if Joe watches this back and realizes he spent his long shot avoid on an invalid attack versus on a white tiger that ends up winning the game for Laurence.
Long shot avoid and a 7 any power, which both would have been able to block that white tiger.
Right.
Now let's see how this battle finishes off. Of course, Laurence not being stopped throwing anything, throwing everything on his side, trying to get stuff to stick. Joe reeling through, looking to see what his activators do.
I mean, that's a great... I really like shifting cards that are low like that because it almost treats it like an avoid. They're so low for venture that the difference doesn't matter that much. But I mean, if he defends this, it's over.
If he defends that 3, it's over.
Oh, that's so frustrating. I mean, he might have still had enough cards that he still pulled it out regardless. But I mean, the X-Man was playable with the 7. The Holocaust could have been used defensively to stop it.
That would have been a really interesting hand, I think, to see it play out the way it should have. Of course, having the multi there
hurts too, but
the 4 multi, the 5 multi, and the teamwork, as well as the ally, of course, all not being playable in this round. This actually could have swayed the other way. Now, of course, the 4 and the 5 would have been used as defensive cards.
Yeah, they would have been auto defenses for the 3 that he would be able to pass with, which is difficult to push the 3 through.
Because he would have been able to pass with those cards. So Laurence might have actually been able to still pull this out. However, again, as you start to go through this tournament with us, as we're watching and explaining it to you, you can see as the day wears on, your brain wears out.
Yeah.
And you need to just keep that attrition, keep that focus, understand what your deck does. And when it's doing it, understand what cards can or cannot be played in those moments. Any final thoughts, Ty? That was one of those bet 7s that usually don't go the other way, but it looked like Laurence just had nothing but continuous attacks, especially with intelligence icons.
I mean, I've been in this spot and it's frustrating because when you do the venture, it's like you were a different person. You don't remember why you did the play. And then when you see him throw the teamwork, you're like, why, when I have no defense for that, was I not concerned about that card when I ventured it? And it's because you actually were correctly realizing your event was in play. Then afterwards, when you realize when he plays it, it surprises you and you can't figure out why. You assume you misplayed as opposed to your opponent. So, I mean, like Joe Peters, I tend to play decks that tend to be combo heavy and complicated and have margins that are similar. So I know it takes, you've got a lot on your mind playing these types of decks and you put pressure on yourself as a player to keep track of it all. And all it takes is the odd thing to slip up because you're thinking about your combo. You miss your event that's in play, right? So it does happen. And I mean, that is one of the things about playing a simpler deck that has its edge and has its advantages for that reason. But
it has happened to us all, whether you are at the top of the mountain or the bottom.
Yes.
Again, as you climb, just remember, keep your eye on the game and stay focused. Thank you for joining us here on what was a very quick round 4. And of course, Tyler, thank you for all that insight into Joe Peters' deck. You really broke it down for us very well.
Yeah, I mean, it was second Venture 7. This has been an interesting one to commentate. So,
thank you. And we will see you in round 5. People's lives are on the line as this tournament starts to break down to the top 8. Thanks, you. See you soon.